Cambodia or Kampuchea. The names have changed, but the agony of the Khmer nation has remained much the same over almost 2 decades. Political upheaval and bloody conflict transformed the once peaceful nation into the killing fields of Western Indochina. Hundreds of thousands were slaughtered as innocent victims of internal or external strife. In the late 70s, the murderous violence spawned a mass exodus of Kampuchean peasants and city dwellers, destination Thailand, and a very uncertain future. The world had a new refugee problem on its hands and its conscience. 9 years later, a Kampuchean refugee remembers.
ដើមឡើយខ្ញុំបានរស់នៅក្នុងខេត្តកំពង់ចាមកាលពីក្នុងឆ្នាំ 1979
At first, in 1979, I lived in Kampong Cham. At that time, I went to Phnom Penh for a little less than 1 year.
មួយឆ្នាំហើយខ្ញុំនឹងប្រពន្ធខ្ញុំនិងតាខ្ញុំមានគ្នា3នាក់
With my wife and my mother, we left Phnom Penh and reached the border of Thailand because I was very scared of what would become of us if we stay in Cambodia.
វាសនាដែលខ្ញុំនៅក្នុងប្រទេសខ្មែរបន្តមកទៀតខ្ញុំត្រូវធ្វើដំណើរឆ្លងកាត់តាមព្រៃ
In order to reach Nong Chan camp, we had to face many difficulties crossing the forest.
Meeting the emergency head-on, the International Committee of the Red Cross and UNICEF rushed into action with a crash program to meet the most urgent needs of the swelling stream of refugees. In chaotic conditions, the 2 lead agencies brought in thousands of tons of food and medical assistance.
That's where I've seen the camp of Nong Samet for the first time. Nong Samet, the Thai word, means pond without outlet, and that's pretty much what it was for these much more than 100,000 people who were living in this camp. When we discovered them, the ICRC, end of 79, the population was presenting quite some needs. They were hungry, they were sick, they were living in a precarious security situation. The ICRC had a fairly large-scale operation. I remember having been in charge of some 5 or 6 doctors, and altogether 30 expatriates that run every day a camp hospital, a few camp clinics, tracing services started very soon. And of course, jointly with UNICEF, we were doing the food distribution. At one time, the ICRC got involved in distributions to non-residents, the land bridge program. And I remember days where, on single days, the ICRC had been shipping 1,000 tons and more to the border. I just let you imagine the columns of trucks.
In the early days, internal as well as external security was sorely lacking in the refugee centers. The camps were often shelled, and the displaced persons had to be relocated in other sites.
It was quite adventurous. It was dangerous too. The camps got shelled quite regularly. I remember numerous evacuations, not only of the expatriate staff, but I've seen more than 100,000 people on the move.
Protection, one of the more specific functions of the ICRC, became a matter of high priority for the delegates in the field. Overseeing the frequent evacuations went hand in hand with protection of the camp population. An additional complication was the status of another category of refugees, the so-called Vietnamese land people who cross Kampuchea to seek shelter on the Thai frontier. Considered natural enemies by the Khmers, these fugitives often landed in makeshift prisons in the border camps. For ICRC delegates, protection of these Vietnamese brother enemies became a daily preoccupation. Unlike the Khmers, Vietnamese land people can only hope for resettlement in a new country. For their personal security, some 17,000 Vietnamese refugees had to be put up in separate locations. Today, some 2,500 remain under the jurisdiction of UNHCR. In the early stages of the westward trek through the minefields, uncounted thousands got separated from their relatives. Scanning long lists of names put up by the ICRC tracing agency, refugees look for missing parents, brothers, or sisters. In 1982, following high-level consultations between governments and relief agencies, the bulk of food relief and medical field aid was transferred to a new coordinating agency of the United Nations. Its name was UNBRO, its headquarters Bangkok.
At the end of 1981, UNICEF, for its own reasons, decided to conclude its involvement, and this created a vacuum because the United Nations had to continue the provision of relief assistance and coordination of and other activities. So the Secretary General authorized the creation of UNBRO to begin functioning at 1 January 1982. And you could say that the prior authorization for this was given by the General Assembly itself, because in November of 1979, the General Assembly requested the Secretary General to provide assistance for the Kampucheans along the Thai border and inside Kampuchea as well. We coordinate the activity of 12 voluntary agencies that work at the border. Although we have a large staff ourselves, we have approximately 160 people working in the field, and most of them are in Aranya-Britet, although we have field offices as well in Surin and in Trat, which is in the south. The assistance is specifically for the border population, that is to say about 295,000 Kampucheans.
After new outbreaks of border violence in 1985, over 250,000 refugees were transferred to new settlements inside Thailand. The intermingling of Thai and Khmer cultures is evident to any visitor of the border region, where ancient Khmer temples stand side by side with Thai Buddhist shrines built in more recent times. The hustle of urban modernization in the border town of Aranya-Pratet is in stark contrast with the unruffled life of the countryside. Superimposed on the landscape, the sprawling refugee centers stand out as so many incongruous landmarks among the sprawling rice paddies. The camps have become semi-permanent homes for almost 300,000 people. Symbolizing the world's moral commitment to humans in distress, UNBRO's mobile teams assure the weekly supplies of food and other essentials to the camp population at a cost of $70 million a year. In the camps, water wells are far and few between, which means that most of the drinking water must be brought in by UNBRO-chartered tanker trucks. Here and there, an occasional vegetable patch. In several refugee centers, makeshift markets have sprung up, supplied by enterprising Thai peasants. The customers are Khmer refugees lucky enough to receive regular money transfers from emigrated friends or relatives overseas. Through the long years of confinement, the refugees have turned their camps into semi-permanent settlements. Dwellings and community buildings are constantly improved or extended, and sanitary facilities are now available to most families. Pounding rice is one of the women's daily chores.
When their husbands are away on mission, the women take care of the children, the food, and the household. And they can also learn to sew at the camp's Khmer Women's Association Center. Most of the children were born on the Thai border. They know strictly nothing about life outside of a camp. For example, my nephews have never seen any cows or buffaloes. When they will see some, they will be stunned. They never saw anything else than this camp.
With refugee birth rates soaring to 6% a year, schooling became a high priority element for the camp community. Long restricted to primary schools only, refugee teenagers are deeply demoralized by the lack of facilities for advanced education.
After finishing my studies here next month, I'd like to be a doctor, but the situation in the camps is such that I will not be able to reach my goal. The hope that I have had since my childhood will be destroyed forever.
Boredom, a constant companion.
The ones who stay here for a long time have nothing to do the whole day long. If they were in Cambodia, during their free time they could go fishing or gather other food to cover the needs of their families. But here they're enclosed. If they want to fish, where can they go? If they want to do business, they can't. They don't know what to do anymore, except just to wait for the rice given by UNBRO.
Well, as you said, there is a well-functioning apparatus of relief assistance that has been in place for long enough that it works very well. But the question of their future is really beyond our involvement. That is to say, it requires political decisions that will be taken elsewhere and by other people. So that pending that, we can provide assistance of a very high standard. But what the future of these people will be is beyond us. It's out of our hands. Hopefully, they will all go home. And towards that end, we've been trying to encourage what is called Khmer self-management, that is getting these people to make decisions for themselves, to become competent, to understand how their villages function, because you have to realize that many of these people in the camps are very young and they have never been in a village of origin. The older people, of course, have been, so that, for example, they've never done farming. They wouldn't know how to plant rice because they haven't done it. And we're encouraging that, but the means whereby these people will get home is beyond us, I'm afraid.
Refugee life drags on for months and years. But there's no let-up for the ICRC's field operatives. With UNBRO and the voluntary agencies now filling the material needs, the International Committee of the Red Cross can concentrate on its traditional tasks of protection, dissemination, medical evacuation and surgery, as well as tracing. 9 years after the exodus began, the refugee flow has not stopped. Even today, the camp population is still swelled by new arrivals, averaging 500 or 600 per month. All newcomers are interviewed by ICRC delegates. After his initial screening, the refugee's most immediate concern is the fate of his friends or family, especially those left behind or separated during the long trek to Thailand. Here too, the ICRC's tracing service usually is the only hope. Tracing involves endless checking and sifting through family names with the help of computerized data banks at Bangkok headquarters. Since 1982, the tracing agency has reunited several thousand family members. The tracing agency reassembled this family that got dispersed during the flight from Cambodia. How did they get reunited?
Following the Vietnamese attacks, I was separated from my children and my mother. The ICRC brought them back to me to be reunited here last February.
What did she think happened to her children after she didn't find them?
During our separation, I thought that my children and my mother were dead.
How long were they separated?
4 years.
What did her mother do to try and find her children back?
When I heard that my children were inside too, and that ICRC took care of reuniting separated family members, I called upon the ICRC, who then transferred my children here.
Application of humanitarian law and Red Cross principles is crucial in any conflict situation. In this makeshift theater of operations, potential combatants are doing a realistic dissemination job of their own. Field courses in humanitarian law and the Geneva Conventions are given to soldiers and civilians alike. After all, the lives that are saved may be their own. Although all the refugee settlements are now on the Thai side of the border, the camps are still exposed to the flames of war. Internal security conditions also remain precarious in a number of settlements, and many dwellings have individual shelters. Frequent on-site visits by ICRC delegates help to limit the extent of security violations.
Yeah. Oh, just go walking. See how it's in the sections. How are you? How was the situation this morning? No shelling, nothing last week.
Oh, nothing.
Everything quiet.
Yeah.
But last week it was.
Yeah, last week it.
Dans tout ça, le CICR.
In all of this, the ICRC has quite a particular role, because the ICRC is the only organization which maintains regular contacts with all the parties involved in the conflict.
As soon as news of incidents reaches ICRC posts, field officers or delegates are dispatched on fact-finding missions to get first-hand reports from the people concerned.
Okay, so you sit here. Somebody cap. So Nagaraj, can you ask them what was the shooting just now we heard about a few minutes ago, if they could explain?
คือว่าทางพวกเราได้ยินเสียงปืนทางนี้นะฮะไม่ทราบว่าเกิดเหตุการณ์อะไรขึ้นหรือเปล่าคือว่าเป็นเหตุการณ์ที่แบบตามชายแดนคงทราบดีว่าเสียงปืนนี่มันเสียงธรรมดาก็ไม่มีอะไรมากเหตุการณ์ปกติดีผมออกไปดูแล้วก็ไม่มีอะไรมาก So they think that is they go and check too and they think it's a small bullet just shooting outside and they think it's nothing special.
Yeah, but very far from here, or because it sounded quite clear. Maybe it's the echo. I don't know.
The responsibility for camp security was transferred from Thai Army Ranger forces to specially trained DPPU personnel in the summer of 1988.
เนื่องจากว่า the ranger เก่า the old ranger ได้รับการฝึกมา
The rangers were combatants who used tough methods to maintain orders in the camps.
ดูแล
But the DPPU was formed on one hand to understand how international organizations work, and on the other to respect the rules of the international humanitarian law.
DPPU ซึ่งได้รับการฝึกให้เข้าใจถึงมนุษยธรรมความสัมพันธ์ระหว่างประเทศการปฏิบัติงานกับองค์การช่วยเหลือนานาชาติ หลังจากที่ได้เปลี่ยนจาก
Relations are much better in the camps since the creation of the DPPU, particularly so for the women of the DPPU who have a good contact with the Khmer women and children.
ผู้หญิงของ DPPU ก็มีความสัมพันธ์อันดีเนื่องจากได้รับการฝึกมาเป็นอย่างดี
In combat, prisoners are taken, and access to captives is a mandatory element in the ICRC's protection work. Problems remain in this sector, despite the stipulations of the Geneva Conventions. To obtain the necessary clearance, persistent contacts with Thai Army commanders in the field and at headquarters in Bangkok are vigorously pursued.
And it is very important for the ICRC to know that you also think that repatriation should be planned, and that all the people from all the camps, they should be part of a planned repatriation program.
เดินตามหลักของ Geneva Convention แต่ว่าทางฝ่ายทหาร
We know that the ICRC has a specific mandate as conferred by the Geneva Conventions. But one of the tasks of the Supreme Command is to ensure the security of the border regions. So the principles of the two parties are different. We follow different paths, and there are sometimes clashes between us in the course of our work. But to resolve these problems, each of us goes halfway to meet the other.
เราก็จะพบตรงครึ่งทางเราก็จะแก้ปัญหาได้ซึ่งก็มีหลายครั้งที่เราได้ร่วมกันแก้ปัญหาแล้วแก้ปัญหาได้ดีทุกประการ
The
อนุสัญญาเจนีวานะครับมีทั้งหมดประมาณ600มาตรานะครับแต่ไม่ต้องไปจำนะครับ
Ignorance is definitely no bliss when it comes to applying the Geneva Conventions. That's why the ICRC is directly involved in dissemination courses for Thai Army personnel to explain its mission and its presence in Thailand.
ก็คือให้ความเคารพและคุ้มครองนะครับมีชื่อถนนสายหนึ่งครับเป็นชื่อของคนคนนี้นะฮะอยู่ใกล้ๆกับสนามม้านะฮะสภากาชาติไทยชื่ออะไรนะครับอังรีดูนังนะครับโอ้เก่งมากปรบมือให้ตัวเองดังๆครับรู้สึกว่าทุกท่านนะฮะ
So let me explain something about our activity here on the border of Thailand and Cambodia.
In order to be effective, dissemination must be pursued at every level to reach all the parties concerned, civilians as well as combatants. Here, ANS guerrillas are getting the message about humanitarian behavior in combat situations.
In Khao Dang.
យើងបានដឹងហើយថាកាកបាទក្រហមអន្តរជាតិមានមន្ទីរពេទ្យមួយនៅខៅដាង to know about the injuries.
That's right, yeah. I think you also see it for yourself if you have a hemorrhage, and it's quite correct.
In several border encampments, Khmer fighters are enrolled in first aid courses, and successful students are rewarded with personal first aid kits. Here, too, saving lives is the purpose of the exercise. The ongoing hit-and-run war in the Cambodian border zone is still taking its toll. Wounded combatants are picked up by their comrades and carried to safety through the murderous minefields. On the Thai side of the border, ambulances are summoned to move casualties to the nearest medical station of the International Committee of the Red Cross. Serious cases in need of immediate surgery are transported from all the campsites to Khao Dang, where the ICRC has been operating a surgical field clinic since 1979. Since its inception, the Khao Dang facility has performed up to 3,000 operations a year. The clinic is well equipped to handle almost daily life and death crises, because here almost every case is an emergency. Khao Dang is manned by volunteer Red Cross medics from all over the world, assisted by locally recruited Khmer or Thai personnel. Their skill and sense of mission have saved thousands of lives. The Khao Dang Hospital has a 100-bed capacity, which can be extended when necessary. In war surgery, the accent is on traumatology. More often than not, operations involve victims of anti-personnel mines, bullets, or mortar shells, requiring extensive post-operative care. And that's where the French organization Handicap International takes over, with a rehabilitation center located right next to the Khao Dang clinic.
Staying in section 4.
He's staying in section 4?
Yeah, staying with
ICRC accredited medical coordination officers decide on the transfer of patients to Khao Idang after consultation with their colleagues in medical centers run by voluntary agencies under the umbrella of UNBRO.
Bend your arm. Bend. Straighten.
ICRC also works closely together with well-established organizations like Médecins Sans Frontières. In this region, MSF concentrates on medical care for child patients. At Aranya Pratet, where most relief organizations have their regional headquarters, the Thai Red Cross focuses on ophthalmology as its share of the collective medical effort. It operates a fully equipped modern eye clinic for the treatment of refugee or other patients. In this particular environment, traditional medicine also has a role to play. At Khao Idang, a traditional medicine center has been in operation since 1980. Originally set up by the ICRC, the center now has a psychiatric ward as well, because the despondency of refugee life takes its toll in terms of mental health. Live-in patients are treated by their own Khmer practitioners as well as Western specialists. The Khao Idang Blood Bank now draws most of its daily supplies from the refugee population, with volunteers from all walks of life donating blood. In the confinement of the camps, memories live longer than dreams, because there isn't all that much to dream about. Refugees pass their days the best they can in an endless struggle against depression and against despondency. But all the refugees share a common hope, and that is going home and resuming a normal life in peace.
According to my personal opinion, the inhabitants in the camps want to go back and live among their own people in Cambodia. And I think exactly in the same terms.
Obviously, some refugees are luckier than most. Take Chamrong, who fled the Kampuchean killing fields more than 8 years ago. Lo has a job and lives in Switzerland with his family. But, like any displaced person, Chamrong Lo wants to go home. Sometime, someday.
I live in Geneva with my family. The country of Switzerland kindly welcomed us, and we have a good standard of living. But my stay here will only be temporary. In fact, I long for Cambodia to find peace again, so that I can go back and help to rebuild my country according to my capabilities.
ครับก็คิดว่าคงจะไปอีกหลายปีแต่เราก็มีโครงการไว้ว่าเราจะเริ่มโครงการแรก
I think that this situation will last for a few years more, but we have a plan for this, which starts with the teaching of professions that will help them when they go back to Cambodia in 3 years. If they can go back to Cambodia in 1991, we will help them to go home to their country, be they Khmer Rouge, Khmer belonging to Son San, or to Prince Sihanouk.
นี่โครงการเนี่ยเราจะทำทุกฝ่ายคือไม่ว่าจะเป็นเขมรฝ่ายเขมรแดงเขมรฝ่ายเฮงสีนูหรือฝ่ายสันซานเราก็ช่วยเหลือทั้งนั้น
Le CICR sera sans doute impliqué.
The ICRC should doubtlessly be implicated in the repatriation of these 300,000 displaced people from the border. In which way? It will depend on the political circumstances. There will certainly be an important work to be done by our tracing agency. The people staying on this border have often lost sight of members of their families since 1975. And once they go back to Cambodia, it will be very important that they can find their relatives over there. And this is where the ICRC will be able to play a crucial role.
Le CICR pourra sans doute jouer un rôle très important.
In 1980 they were hungry and we had the food, and they were sick and we had the doctors. In 1988 they are no longer that much hungry because food distributions have become perfect. Medical needs, treatment has almost become automatic. Their needs are different now. They want the future, they want to go home, they want villages, rice fields. And by and large, we still have the food and we have the doctors.